Hey everyone, welcome to Steven Universe, the show where we look at the universe of Steven Universe. I'm your host Victor Frost, and it is day 2 of Steven Bomb Week. So it's time for us to take a look at the newest episode and see what we learned. If you haven't seen the episode The Message yet, now is your chance to pause this video, go watch that one, then come back. Don't worry, we'll wait. In the meantime, consider this your spoiler alert. New episode, new lore. Let's see what we learned. So before we start things off, I feel like I have to put in the disclaimer that I am actually a professional audio engineer. And so I have more than a few gripes about, some of the stuff in this episode that really have nothing to do with the overall story or the narrative. And so in the interest of those of you who really don't care, I'm going to put all of my narrative and story analysis in first. And then I'll do the technical stuff that really only people who like audio care about. So people like me, basically. You'll be able to tell the difference because I'll be sitting here as opposed to on my set. Now, this episode was a plot-driven one as opposed to a character-driven one, so there isn't too much to interpret, but let's see what we've got. So in addition to ratcheting up the tension of the gems coming to Earth, this episode does a little bit to give us some insight into how the Crystal Gems and Greg view each other. In Greg's song, he pretty explicitly states that he really respects and admires the Crystal Gems, and how he feels he's getting really none of that in return. And you know what? He's absolutely right. We see the gems writing him off all the way back in Laser Light Cannon, and throughout this episode, they seem to be constantly throwing shade Greg's way. Pearl especially. I mean, Pearl is my favorite, but half the time I just wanted to tell her to wipe that stupid look off your face. You have done nothing to help. You're better than this, Pearl. Now, whether all the flack they were giving Greg was some sort of subconscious resentment for him, I guess, in a way, taking Rose away from them, or whether it was just plain old speciesism, I am really glad Greg finally mustered up the guts to stand up and demand some respect. And you know what? He got it. Even after the tremendously bad news they got, Garnet stood up, took Greg's hand, and thanked him. One of the simplest forms of respect you can get. A solid thank you for a job well done. And you know what? That was actually a good example of Garnet's leadership. It is a great way to keep up morale, to, even in the face of some really bad news, emphasize the good news. We got the message. It was got. That's great. Now it's time for audio engineer me to take the stage and talk a little bit about the technical stuff. There isn't too many things, so I think I'll just go through them sort of rapid fire style. Ready? Here we go. First of all, a phono plug does not plug into any television I have ever seen. You cannot plug an electric guitar directly into a television. I've never seen any sort of cabling system that'll allow you to do that. Second, you should be able to tell where a sound is coming from without messing around with faders. The sound of the Wailing Stone was gigantic, and there's no way he would have been able to reasonably confuse it with the sound coming out of his guitar amps that were sitting out there. Now, he didn't have those giant PA speakers he had later on. Those were little guitar amps. They should have sounded different, and if nothing else, you should have been able to tell the location of the sound. Third, any advanced technology that would have been used to transmit video and audio through the Wailing Stone wouldn't have resulted in a distorted audio. It would have resulted in an encoded signal, which Pearl should have been able to say. Pearl, the most technical person on the show, should have at least said the right thing, that it was an incompatible signal. Fourth, yes, cardioid condenser mics are great. That is what I love. I own 2 of them, though most of my mics are dynamic. That means nothing to the vast majority of you guys, but, just a thing I like to bring up. I love microphones. I'm an audio engineer. What do you want from me? Fifth, reverb, any low octave effects, flangers, or fuzz are all distortion effects. They would have only done more to distort the signal, not clean it up. Sixth and finally, in order to combine video and audio into a single signal that would be able to be picked up by a microphone, not an antenna, you would have to encode it digitally, which means there is no way any of Greg's analog equipment would have been able to decode that. It just wouldn't happen because analog equipment can't decode digital signals. Ugh. And I know there are some electrical engineers out there who will say, well, there is certainly some combination of equipment that can do that using only transistors and blah, whatever. No, dudes, audio equipment, stuff like this, no, not happening. I guess the best way to sum up all of this would be, that's not how this works. It's not how any of this works. Steven Universe crew, I love you guys, and I know you guys, a lot of you are musicians, but please, for the sake of the sanity of people like me, do not just toss in the functions of random guitar effects pedals as terminology that's supposed to make sense, especially when Greg says that audio is his thing, because that just shows that audio is not his thing. So that's what we learned in today's Steven Universe. Join us tomorrow when we talk about political power. I'm Victor Frost, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I can't just walk off the set this time. Star Wipe!